the federal government is telling federal employees not to cooperate with the federal government coalition. It's insane. FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, has banned employees from attending hearings on making air travel safer for me and you. This should have been a non-controversial item. The Federal Aviation Administration has reportedly banned its employees from attending advisory panels set up to explore how to make air travel safer. Politico reported this on Tuesday. We have the background. A new directive issued to FAA employees says they, quote, should not attend in person or virtually until further notice, according to the report. The panels themselves can continue, the directive said, but with an industry co-chair taking the lead without buy-in from the experts at the FAA. Why? It's propaganda. They want propaganda, not true. Quote, these advisory committees are made up of government and industry representatives who meet regularly to find consensus on outstanding issues. That's how you get problems solved before they become big problems. Said the report. Ongoing ones include those related to pilot training and mental health, drones and other emerging technologies, airspace modernization and commercial space operations. Broadly speaking, they tackle ways to reduce risk across the aviation system, taking guidance from airlines, union groups, and even companies that make parts for aircraft, end quote. But one employee told Politico, quote, it appears that safety is being forced to take a back seat due to fear of retribution, which means we all lose. That's right. This comes as the Department of Transportation investigates the collision that downed American Eagle Flight 5342 in the Panama. President Donald Trump, who recently appointed former Representative Sean Duffy to head the Department of Transportation, has suggested, with no evidence, none, that diversity hiring by the FAA may have been responsible for the American Eagle Flight 5342 collision. Diversity hiring. You know what's interesting about that scenario, about that narrative? Statistically, numerically speaking, the most egregious and the most negligent things that have occurred in our American government, 99% of it has been led by white men. But it's interesting that white males do not get blamed as a race or demographic, even though pound for pound, look at some of the worst decisions that have ever been made, worst calls that have ever been called in America. A white male was leading it. Pick your agency, pick your time frame, pick the era. But white males as a demographic are left out of the policy conversation. That one white male is blamed sometimes, but not the entire race. However, if it relates to diversity, all of a sudden, it's the policy. It's black people, it's brown people, it's women, it's this, it's that. J.D. Vance says, and by the way, I know you forgot, but he's the vice president of the United States, not Elon Musk. J.D. Vance says DEI hires are stressing out workers. Here it is.
Something the president said that I think bears re-emphasizing, which is that when you don't have the best standards in who you're hiring, it means on the one hand, you're not getting the best people in government, but on the other hand, it puts stresses on the people who are already there.
you got the right plan, wrong man. You see, we have worked around mediocre people for a long time in positions of high authority that we could not achieve in that industry dynamic because of the bias, bigotry, and racist protocols that existed in the culture. So we get what you're saying. It stressed us the hell out too, to work for management, supervisors, and a coalition of individuals who could care less about qualification. It is amazing to me how the script is flipped. But all they're doing is what they have historically done. You see, the Boston Tea Party was not a party. If you look at it from what actually happened, you would consider it to be an act of domestic terrorism. But because they get to tell the story, it becomes history. What is history? His story. Look between the lines. Wosny, thoughts?
So just so folks understand the sort of framing that these right wingers are using in their DEI attacks, right? It's not just that they're going after it with this assumption that, oh, DEI is just bad. They're trying to say to people that DEI is bad because oftentimes people are getting hired for considerations that aren't their core competence for the given job or task.
Yep.
That's the case they're trying to make. Okay, cool. You're making that case. Where is the evidence? Show me the instance where some black person, brown person, lady, queer person, whatever, was hired for a job and was demonstrated in the government that they were wholly unsuited for the job. And the only reason they got hired was some DEI initiative. And I promise you guys, folks, if any of these cases actually existed where some person who was a DEI initiative or could be painted as such, even if they weren't, were somehow wholly incompetent, and these folks could demonstrate that DEI is responsible for them being elevated to this position, it's all you'd see on Fox News. It's all Ben Shapiro would be talking about. If Donald Trump would be out right now, naming the person, talking about the job, talking about the mess up, talking about the screw up. They don't have a single thing to point to. They're just slashing programs in order to generate headlines and to make it seem like they're the ones, fixing society, which became so incompetent because we just kept putting black and brown people in positions that they were wholly unqualified for. It's nonsense.
Brother, you make a great point that unfortunately has to be repeated every time we tell the story, and I'm glad you did. We find this at universities and colleges. So in higher education, there's this misnomer that if a student has taken advantage of a diversity program, it used to be called affirmative action, that they did not meet the qualifications to be a student, which is a lie. You have to meet the qualifications, period. Doesn't matter what race you are. You have to meet the qualifications. After you meet the qualifications, diversity can be utilized as a balancing approach to the overall spirit of academia and the culture of the campus. But if you don't meet the qualification, the answer is no anyway from the admissions committee. That is how these DEI programs work holistically. Qualification must be in place. So thank you, dear brother, for the reminder.